also think that just lack of science education, and I do want to talk about this a little bit too, because I think I actually think it hinders education to some extent in this country. What are your thoughts on that? When you raise a child who's religious, I took a geology course recently to complete my degree. And the first thing the professor in that class asked is if there's any religious people in this course, because they're going to teach stuff that contradicts religion, and so it's hard for some of the students. But what do you think about that? Do you think that is kind of hinders education to some extent? And I know Sunny and Caleb want to jump on this too, but I'll go ahead and start with you, Laura.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I really think it depends on the religious family and how it all, like what they expose their kids to or don't expose their kids to. I know for me, so I homeschool 3 of our kids, and I love like teaching the scientific exploration and how to be curious and how to love learning and stuff. And so I think that there is something about not having the constraints of religion that allows you more freedom of exploration. But I also think that not every single religious family, I don't know how, I'm trying to put this graciously. Religion doesn't automatically stifle science. It's the teaching that religion is against science, or that the two of them butt heads, that I think stifles science. So the progressive Christians that are like, oh yeah, evolution was just God's way, and oh yeah, millions of years it was just a different translation. Like the 6 days may have been 6 God days, right? So the people who take reality first and sort of fit religion into it, I don't think that it really stifles their kids' curiosity as much as they may be confused about other things, but I don't think it stifles their scientific inquisition. But when you have people teaching the literal 6 days and you have people teaching the literal flood, that is where I think there's a lot of critical thinking gets like stopped in the child's upbringing.
And Sunny, you do not live in a liberal area. I know that you live in a very conservative area. So what is your take on that as far as how religion impacts education? Because Laura's right, it varies depending on how religious the people are, but you coming from a conservative area, what have you noticed?
So let me say that I completely agree with Laura. There are more progressive Christians. The problem that I see is that there unfortunately are a lot of evangelical fundamentalist Christians who are actively working to subvert public education. And this could open up a whole big ball of wax, so I will try really hard not to get on my soapbox.
Well, this
is your soapbox. Step up, girl.
But
say what you need to say.
What I am seeing all around me is a push to eliminate science in the classrooms, to incorporate creationism into classrooms, to bring prayer back into the classrooms, is what they love to say. And kids are taught around here to question teachers and to actively, and it's not that we have teachers here who say things as well. So I'm constantly on the alert when my kids come home from school.
Let me pause you right there, and then I'm going to have you continue. But Caleb just asked, is it really that bad? Because he hasn't heard you tell this story before. And so I will answer for her, not to derail what she was saying, Caleb, but the short answer is yes, and she's not the only one, because we have Kat the humanist who's in the chat right now, and she would attest to this as well. She lives in a different area from Sunny, but it's equally conservative, and she, I believe, is an educator as well. So we would like to get her thoughts in the comments. Kat, if you're still listening, tell us what you think about that last question, but go ahead, Sunny.
Yeah, it is that bad. And I apologize because I didn't hear the question. So I'm glad that you interrupted, Bryce. Yes, it is absolutely that bad. I see it daily, which is why I have a pseudonym, because if they were to search my name, I could lose my job.
Wow.
And yet I want to be an activist, and I'm doing this for my own self-care. I will be, and I'm not like hiding I'm not like having an avatar or anything. I just changed my name so that I can at least try to protect myself in some way. But it is bad. I have teachers who are preaching in the classroom, and making children who are scientifically minded feel bad about it. And then you have kids who, when you do have a teacher teaching science, they are trained on how to counter that and have disrupt the classroom. They're actively trying to get evolution to be stricken from the textbooks. It's insidious. And so where I stand, where I am, I have a little bit of anger when it comes to that. And I'm not at all in the angry atheist state that we had talked about earlier behind the scenes. I am actually angry at the encroachment and the increasing encroachment that I see in recent years of fundamentalist evangelical Christianity invading secular areas and going against our Constitution. And I think it is something that we all need to be aware of, even if you don't see it outright in where you are. You still need to be aware, and you need to be looking for it, because it doesn't take much for them to figure out a way to get a foothold in. And once they get a foothold in, it's very difficult to get that back out. So I have a lot to say when it comes to education and religiosity. My kids, what I was going to say a second ago is that my kids come home and they already know, like, okay, Mom, just take a deep breath before I tell you this, because they know I will call the school and they're like, okay, is this something I really want to do?
Yeah. And there's Kat right now, just to piggybacking on that, Caleb, it'd be nice to go to work and not have to hear religion brought up. So yeah, it's definitely there. The topic of LGBT youth. And this is also one area where I find that raising kids without religion, well, I don't find I've never raised kids, but I can imagine that children who are not raised in a religious environment, if they are of an LGBT persuasion, are not shamed for that in the way that most of them are when they come from religious environments. So this to me is one of the harms, one of the, not really silent harms, but something that needs to be spoken about more.
It's a blatant harm. Let's just be honest.
Not even
it's a
silent at
blatant
this point.
issue.
Yeah, it's pretty abusive. Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's not to say that every single religious parent is abusing their LGBT child, but just, growing up with this idea that you're a sinner because of the way that you are, or that worse, you might be going to hell unless you pray the gay away, or something ridiculous like that. That is really harmful to children. I mean, it's led to suicides, and so this is, to me, one of the harms of raising children with religious ideas, but especially like conservative fundamentalist ideas. And it sounds like none of you are going to disagree with me about that, but I'll just start with Caleb.
Well, the concept has yet to come up. My son doesn't seem to have any...
I think it's safe to assume that your kid is safe because he's the one who believes in God and you're the one that doesn't. So.
Yeah, well, that's, what's, here's what I appreciate about our relationship is that he respects and I respect, and I'm amazed that at such a young age we can have this mutual respect, that we just believe different things. He's like, because when I said, because he's asked me, he's like, I believe in God. He's like, I know you don't, but I do. And I'm like, oh, okay.
So hypothetical situation, I don't want to deal with your actual kids, but let's say you have a kid in the future, and then somewhere around the age of 12, 13, 14, he starts expressing that he thinks he might be attracted to boys. How do you approach that?
To be honest, I
do you even care?
I really don't. The only thing that I think would be a topic of conversation would be how to navigate pragmatically with this as the situation being what it is.
You mean in our society with the prejudices and
exactly.
all of that?
I mean, because we have to. We both would have. I would. Let's just say the brute fact of the matter is being homosexual does come with some baggage. Being bisexual does come with some baggage, and there's nothing wrong with that. You're transgender, thank you. All of this, it comes with some baggage, and we have to be able to recognize, honestly, that given the culture we live in, this is the baggage that you have to deal with. And I think I would just have I would hope that I'd be able to have a very just honest conversation about what to expect. That I let him know that we still love him. Our opinion of him has not changed whatsoever. If he should turn out to be gay or homosexual or whatever, bi, excuse me.
So then let me go to Laura really quick, because you have 5 kids. So let's take them out of the picture. Let's say that you're looking for one more, before it's said and done, because I don't like implicating people or outing anyone if
Well, let me just stop you right there, though, because I disagree. Like, I think it is okay to talk in terms of reality. Like, I have the kids that I have, and whether or not LGBT issues are an issue in our house is pertinent, right? So that is something that as a family we're actually very, very passionate about. We're activists. My kids and I are going to be marching in the upcoming gay parade in our local city here. And we're going to be taking a trans friend of mine, and we're going to be supportive. And we also have our own sexualities. Like, the kids know that I'm pansexual. I mean, you can call it bisexual, pansexual, whatever you want to call it. Gender doesn't matter to me, and they know that. One of my 5 kids has already said that they're bisexual, and I celebrate that. I'm like, that's cool, because you've taken the time to think about it, and because you know, and because you're comfortable enough to just say it so nonchalantly and not make it a, oh, hey, mom, I got to talk to you, right? Just kind of, they can casually discuss it as though it's no big deal.
Right.
I think in terms of parenting, the best way to handle LGBTQ problems is to not make them problems, is to just normalize it. It's not weird to say whether or not you're gay or bisexual or
I think
trans.
that's a great point. I think that's an excellent point to bring up, is to intentionally go out of your way to make sure that you're going to ensure that the future is just working towards the normalization of that process, of that ideal. But I also think that it's important to reiterate the reality of the situation. That,
absolutely.
We do live in a world where people are going to look at you and think that you're a nasty person by virtue of nothing else than the fact that you have some attraction to the same sex, to whatever degree. And
so that's a different discussion with the kids. Yeah.
But that may be applicable because Sonny, you may live in an area that is more common. The type of thing that Caleb is talking about would be likely to happen. I guess maybe the way I should ask it is, how do they feel about the gays?
Okay, so I will tell you this. This is quite interesting. The younger generation is changing, even in my area, and that is a great thing. So the older generation and up until probably, or as young as probably 35. And up are very, they still say things like, that's so gay, like as if that's a terrible slur, which drives me up the wall.
Yeah, Kat just mentioned that her students, some of them still use that as an insult towards others, and she's in an area similar to yours as well.
But the younger generation are starting to shift. Now, there are some kids that we have had kids commit suicide. We've had kids who have been kicked out of their houses. It's ridiculous. But my kids are, I'm just so proud of them, because they will stand up. And my daughter has a friend who was born with she pronouns and said he wants to have he pronouns. And my daughter's like, extremely supportive and will get up into somebody's face if they don't use the correct pronouns. It's like, you already know he wants to be called he. There's no, so
Right.
they're very supportive, and I loved what Laura said. Absolutely, you have to live in the world of reality. I also have one who identifies as bisexual, and is just all of my kids are just awesome in that way, and I couldn't be more proud of them. Well, I remember as you guys were talking, I remembered when one of my kids, I can't remember which one, but they were maybe in the 3rd grade, and one of our relatives said something like, "So do you have a little boyfriend yet, or a little girlfriend?" And I spoke up and I said, "Or a boyfriend, or a, whatever."
Yeah, how did that go
It was
over?
just something that just kind of popped out of my mouth. And then they all look over at me like, "What?"
What's wrong with you?
Like, yeah, really, what? It was just something that was known. My kids have known, all of the kids have known from a young age that sexuality is whatever you make it. There's a wide spectrum, and you fall anywhere along that line, and you are a human being worthy of love, and it really doesn't matter. If you be called they them, that's cool. If you want to, and we've also not just talked about LGBTQ, but also in this area, there's still a big deal about interracial couples. And so I was shocked that a good friend of mine, her husband got really upset when her white daughter brought home a black boyfriend, and he flipped out. And we were having a conversation, and she tells me this like it's the most common thing. Like, I would say, "Well, wow, that's terrible," and I didn't. They've since worked through it, and she has graduated, and she still has her black boyfriend.
I mean, I remember they made a movie about this, I think before all of us were born, called Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, and I thought
yes.
the lesson.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Oh, it's
it's
awesome.
a great movie. It's
I'm writing that down.
Yeah, it's got it's like Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn and Sidney Poitier. It's a great movie. Yeah, it's I think it was from the mid-60s, but I thought the lesson ought to have been learned there, but apparently not everywhere.
Not everywhere.